Let's Get Tryin is a podcast that challenges us to live real and authentic lives, no matter the journey we're on, from life to faith to even mental health. Host Aaron Lee presents the importance of never giving up. So let's get Tryin with Aaron Lee.
Yo, what is up, podcast family? I'm Aaron, and this is a new episode of Let's Get Tryin with Aaron Lee. This is a podcast all about not giving up, but in turn, living a real and authentic life, no matter whether you're dealing with depression or if you just want to have more genuine relationships in life. That's what this podcast is all about. And this is part 2 of our authentic relationship episodes. Actually, it's You Need This Kind of Friendship, Part 2. And I've got my buddy Bryan Hay back with me on this episode, and we talk more about how we find these authentic relationships, how we live out these authentic relationships, and sometimes it takes a little tension to get there, and that's okay. Well, before we jump into our interview together, our discussion together, be sure to click that subscribe button. Be sure to share it on your social media. And please join our newsletter. Go over to aarontlee.com and scroll down to the bottom and just fill out the form there, and you will start getting emails from us over here, and you'll just stay up to date with what's going on. Hey, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all of you who are making this podcast happen, who are believing in this life that is rooted in authentic living, in being vulnerable and being genuine. And that's a really hard thing. So I commend you. I commend those of you out there who are willing to do this, because we all need to live this way. We all need one another in this, because the world is kind of telling us, no, that's not what you need to do. You need to be like this person, or you need to be like this person. And that's not authentic. That's not real. That's not vulnerable. So in this episode, we're going to dig down into how to have some authentic relationships, and let's get to it. All right, so Bryan's back for our second part of this episode on authentic relationships. Man, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed our discussion earlier about just what our relationship has meant and how we're different people because of it. And we really want to focus, and we want to talk about all that, but we really want to focus this time around. How can we encourage our friends out there, those people who we're journeying with? How do we all find that? How do we find those people who are authentic and get those authentic relationships, or pull that out of one another?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've kind of identified is that, man, there are probably people at different levels of this. So there may be some of you out there who are listening who you just have no relationships with people you feel like you trust, or people you feel like you're connected to in a way that you can be authentic with them. Now, there may be the next level. You may have those people that you can be authentic with in certain things, or vulnerable with in a few things, but not everything. And then there may be those of you who are like me and Bryan, who have been journeying together and walking through that. But the thing is it's not over, and we still have to keep working towards that. So Bryan, like, as we were talking before we started, man, what is it you think this is most important for people to be able to find that, or to be able to have that in their lives?
Yeah, probably one of the most interesting battles for any of us is finding, somebody to do life with. You think about on the for us to find our spouses, the journey to find your spouse. I mean, there's people all over the place that are trying to find that, and in a different way, but in a similar way. In this way, we're trying to find an authentic relationship and somebody that we can actually do life and go to depths and work through things and be partnered in this thing. And I know that there were some things that we didn't know at the time, but we had that at the very common core of us was aligned with, and that we identified as different as we are and were, we had a common goal. Two guys that were really trying to figure out how to become the men that we knew God created us to be.
Yeah.
So we had identified, we had enough of a relationship by that point in time to realize that, like, even in just your common friendships, that there's somebody, because here's the thing is, we had other guys that we were friends with at the time.
Yeah.
Like, we were all kind of in a similar level, some a little bit deeper, some a lot, not so much.
Yeah.
But there was something that between me and you, of those other friends that were among us, that I think had kind of pinged on the radar, that said, all right, this is where we're going to invest our time and take this chance to go after this thing. And so if you remember, man, it was one of those things that you had shared that depth. And when you did, I gravitated towards it while others didn't.
No, right. Exactly.
So I think there was something there that says that there was some identifying factors that said, man, this guy is, that old acronym, faithful, available, teachable, and that whole thing can be somewhat corny. But I think that the reality of, there was an availability, there was a faithfulness, and there was a willingness to, teachable is maybe not the right word, but there was a willingness to go alongside one another.
Fight.
Yeah, and fight together. And I think that when you find that in somebody, and you identify somebody that is like sincerely pursuing that, and they are available, and you can tell they're faithful to it, and they're willing to take it, and you start diving into that, investing into that, and like I said before, you start realizing, as you start chipping away and going to a more depth, that the person is being drawn towards you versus away. And I think that really spoke something to me that I think other people can identify and look for.
That's good. As you're talking, I was thinking about, do you remember we went on a trip with a bunch of guys one time, and you and I rode together, and on the way back, we talked about, and this is no knock on anybody else, it was just, we yearned for that trip to be deeper.
Yes.
We thought, as we went into it, that we were going to talk about some really deep spiritual things, that we were going to be invested in some really authentic communication with one another. And it was all fun and play, surface level stuff.
Classic, like with the majority of what you would expect.
Exactly. And again, no knock on anybody else. It was just what me and you were like being pulled to. And I think that said to us that even more, it just kind of validates what we're talking about here. We're drawn together in that way because that's what we're yearning for. It's what we value. We both valued that, and it made us want that more. Two, we had this relationship coming into it, and so we had expectations of things. Yes. Now, I say that because as I think about this, I think there's people that you're probably connecting with, other people that we connect with, that you see value the same thing as you. And when you guys value the same things, and let me clarify, this is not just men, this is men and women.
That's right.
And so I'm just saying in general, there are things that you may value. Like for me, being a pastor, I value people and discipleship and those kind of things. So Bryan and I, obviously, because we're both pastors, both value that. We're going to drift towards each other in that way. We both appreciate good movies, so we both drift in that way. It's something we value. But you may be a person who values just real honest talk about the culture of things right now. And there may be someone in your life that you have healthy conversations with. That could be an indicator of someone that you could invest in and have more authentic relationship with, because you value the same thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
What about one of your last podcasts of how are you really?
Oh, right.
Like the one that asks that question.
Yeah.
And in some ways, being willing to take the chance to take that step to make that, like I always say, set the depth. Like in some ways, so if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I want this. And you've identified a little bit of what we're talking about. You see somebody that's kind of shown some interest in this, and you go to coffee, you go to lunch, you invite them over, and then you start talking about these things, and you start asking that next level question of, no, I wasn't saying, hey, how you doing? I'm not like, dude, how are you really doing?
Right.
Like go into that next level where you're going to go, man, let's cut through the surface level stuff. Let's go one step lower.
Right.
And then when you find that person that accepts that, goes there with you.
Yep.
then you can go, well, let's go one more step. And it's just this consistent flow of where you're building trust with one another, because it is a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
So it's this journey of you're walking with somebody, you're asking that next level question, and then the next level question. And then, you're sincerely, authentically caring and not being selfish in that.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be caring about the other person and what they're saying. You can't be walking into this, I just want to have somebody that cares about my feelings and my stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you have to honestly care about what you're asking them and listen to them. And you, like I said, you've touched on both listening and asking that deeper question in the last couple podcasts, which is right in this line.
Well, and two, I think there's another side of this that allows us to be able to say, there's going to be tension. And I don't want to paint this picture that this is super easy to find or this is super easy to do, because, it's like before you reach that next level, you got to break through.
Yeah.
And there's tension there.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're going to ask a question or you're going to give a response that's going to feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But by doing that, you're opening a new door, breaking through that new layer that gets you to a deeper level. And man, like, that's where the gold is.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think we can even say that in our friendship over the last 10 years, there's those little breakthrough layers that got us to the next level, whether it was sharing something else from our past, whether it was, hey, we've had conflict in our past.
Yes, we have.
We've fought before. We've had tension. But you know what? I think some of that tension caused us to be better friends.
Absolutely.
And so what I'm saying is, I think for those people who are working their way down, there's going to be resistance. There's going to be tension. But if you're both there together, and maybe the other person isn't even there yet, but that question or that thing you share might take you both to the next level.
Yep.
So, okay, that hits with someone that has maybe has someone in their life that can that maybe is a candidate for, that's a terrible term in 2020, isn't it?
Oh gosh.
But so what about somebody that's out there and just feels very alone, just feels completely alone, doesn't feel like they have any true friends? Because I know there are people who feel that way.
Yeah, man.
What encouragement can we give them and give one another when we're struggling with that?
To go after this or to have not gone after this, I imagine most of the people out there listening right now has been wounded or hurt.
Yeah.
Either by your family or, people that you grew up with, or, the way high school went for you. And you have set in your mind a thought process that has been a habitual pain cycle, that if you let people in and they hurt you. And so I think there's a lot of, in small ways and big ways, people that have been like, man, because the reality is that those you love the most can hurt you the most.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there is a risk here that I think for a lot of people who are feeling lonely in a way that they're going, man, it may be in part because you've tried and you've been awkward, or you fell over yourself, or you've ran into the wrong people. And because here's the thing, the reality is both me and you have tried to have authentic relationships with other people.
Yeah.
And it has not worked. Sometimes.
I just can't stop comparing them to you, Bryan.
That's right. Don't do that. No, I'm just kidding. No, man. But we have, because there's some people that weren't ready.
Yeah.
They weren't there in their life, or they've got other wounds and backgrounds. Everybody wants this.
Oh, yeah.
But they're just maybe not ready for it, or they've got other things in their life that's breaking it. And so that's the side of try again.
Yeah.
And then my other side of this that I would go at it is, be careful where you're looking for it. It's kind of like trying to find a spouse in an environment, in an area that you don't really want to live in. So I always joke, like, my Christian friends that go and find a spouse that's maybe actively engaged in sinful activity. We'll just leave it general.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, all right, I'm gonna find my spouse there, and maybe I can influence. I was like, man, if you do that, you're gonna find them in a rough spot. Maybe look for them in places that So for us, we're looking at the church, and the encouragement there was, you go to church for God. You want to know about Him. You want to know more about Him. You want to praise Him, worship Him. Maybe you're just intrigued by God. You want to know more about it. But the other side of it is, man, church is the assembly. It's the gathering, and it's a gathering of people with a common core desire, which should be in the path of more direction than perfection. They're wanting to head towards God.
Yeah.
And so some of that is commonalities that, man, if you're out there and you're going, man, I'm at least trying to figure out how to follow God, you find other people that are authentically sincere towards that path. And part of that path is going to be in relationship with one another.
Yeah. Yeah. I look back at, so we started in a life group together.
Right.
So for those of you who don't, it's a small group, whatever you call it, lots of people call them different things, but we were all in the same life circumstances, which I think is hugely important. I believe that. I do believe that you can be in groups with people of multiple age, different age groups, and that is great. But I think what was great for us is we were at a place, we didn't have kids at the time, and we were able to journey in a way that we couldn't do it when we had kids. Now, what we learned is how valuable it was. So now that we have kids, we've made it a priority.
Yep.
So it's a little harder as you get older, I do think. And especially as you get much older, I would imagine that it's harder to find people to be authentic and honest and vulnerable, really. Vulnerable is the word, I think, for sure.
Yep.
Because we get older, we know more, we're wiser, maybe. And I think that's true. So for me, if you're a believer, start there.
Yeah.
Start there, finding a group of people you can get with, and then look for those commonalities like we were talking about. And then push through the awkwardness, push through the tension that we were talking about a minute ago as well. I would say, for someone who feels alone, I really have a heart for those people, because as someone that deals with depression, I have seasons where I feel very alone, even though I have you, even though I have Jerica and my boys, and I have many other, people in my life that love me and I'm grateful for. But there's something that happens in all of us when we deal with that, where you just feel like nobody really cares. Like,
Yep.
And I'm imagining those people who are listening thinking, well, yeah, that sounds great. Must be nice.
Right.
And I would say, like, there's the cliche answer. Well, you have the Lord that you can go to, but also I would say, like, the Lord doesn't want you to be alone.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Genesis tells us, is God didn't want us. He said it was not good for us to be alone. And so by that very comment that God made, He has someone for you.
Yep.
Right? You just have to maybe take off the glasses to see what things really look like.
Yep.
And to know maybe there is someone right in front of you. It could be your mom.
Yeah.
It could be your sibling. It could be your neighbor. It could be the person that you met at a Bible study. It could be any of those things. But to say that you're meant to be alone is not a true statement.
Yep. God
has someone for you.
Absolutely.
So let's turn this just a little bit to culture. All right. I want to kind of think about culture for a second, because culture's telling us something about, and I think it's why a lot of people don't have authentic relationships. What would you say how culture influences this?
Yeah, man. Well, we joked about last time about two men relationships that are very, very deep. Now, I think the same thing would be true, and actually maybe even more now than ever for two women. Because even now, my wife has made comments like, back in the day, like two girls could hold hands or put arm in arm and walk down the hallway. It was no big deal. But now it means and signifies something different. So our culture is kind of going all over the place on these things. But I to talk to the men out there for a second, because I think that this is, within the wiring of men, and even maybe even the culture of what we grew up with, because I think the culture for us here in America as well is, if you were to define manliness, If that was your defining, if culture said this is what a man is, you could go to movies, you could go to shows. You just go to any reference of who is. I mean, you go to the person that has the most follows and likes on social media. Are they someone who you would describe as someone who is intimately, deeply vulnerable and available to walk with a brother through life? Is that what you see? To me, no, man.
Right. No.
You look at that and you go, man, that is not what they look like. That's not as what is portrayed as authentic masculinity.
No.
That's not. So culture is telling you this is what it means to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it means to be who you were meant to be. This is what it means to be to achieve your goal. And what we're saying is there's a whole nother side to this thing that actually become who God designed you to be. And like you said, whether you want to go to Genesis, you talk about John 17, where Jesus prayed for unity, where you talk about the way in which Jesus literally spent every day with a group of dudes doing life together. I mean, think about that. I mean, he was setting a cultural tone that says, hey, you walk with me. We're sleeping under the same roof. We are walking on the same streets. We are in and around each other constantly. And these guys love each other, man. They ate together. They bled together. They cried together. If there was ever a model for authentic relationship, you can just go back to Jesus even.
Oh yeah, I firmly believe in that. And I talked about this in one of the earlier episodes about Jesus' authenticity in the Garden of Gethsemane. He comes to his closest friends and says, I am grieved. I am overwhelmed to the point of death. Pray for me.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because he's showing us exactly how to live, how to be vulnerable, but authentically showing us what's important to him, and then asking for them to join him in that. I think you're exactly right. Men in culture today, our fathers' generations saw a lot of, you don't talk about emotions, those kind of things, like you're saying. But even nowadays, I think there's some parts of men that we can't be masculine the way God intended it to be. I will say, like for anybody, men or women, look at social media. I use social media all the time in describing this.
Yeah.
Social media creates a false view of the world. It shows you the most beautiful people. It shows you the most beautiful scenery. It shows you the posed picture. So, you can only see one dimension of what is being shared with you. So in that reality, it's not authentic, it's not real, it's not vulnerable. And so people see that and they think they have to achieve that too.
Yeah.
Like, how many pictures do you see of people's houses when they're taking a selfie somewhere in their house? Do you see a pile of clothes in the back, or a naked kid running through the house, peeing everywhere? Or I mean, you came through our house, like,
yeah, man.
We're a lived-in house, and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
But I think culture tells us you have to have a clean house, you have to have a clean car, you have to have cut grass, you have to wear the nicest clothes, you have to look like you're happy. And that tells people you can't be real, you can't be authentic, and that in turn works against this authentic relationship thing.
That's a great point, man. Because whether or not it's intentionally saying it or just saying it on like a superficial level, it is absolutely saying you cannot show your brokenness. Because that's the thing is, like, I love it because even the nicest homes I've been into, you walk in their garage and you're like, oh,
I know.
And so, I mean, everybody's got it, but no one's, there's still such even though there's a false sense in which the culture is now more open and willing to accept people, and it tries to portray that, hey, we're more of a welcoming society and that type of thing. The truth is still, it is, because of social media and other things like it, there's still an absolute swimming upstream to really feel like it's okay to not be perfect. And dude, I'll even say this, even in our churches.
That is so true. Yeah, that is so true.
I mean, isn't that crazy? Like
Yes.
the place in which we should feel the most okay with not being okay.
Yeah, thanks for going there, because that's so true.
I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes I think as ministers, like we can't go, like I'm telling you, like, and even as pastors, like we feel like, dude, there's this sense in which, can you really be real, even in that environment? And man, to me, that is a terrible shame that we have even allowed culture, or we've been the culture, whatever it may be, that to where that is not okay, that you want people to come in still thinking that you have to have everything figured out. And rather than coming in and being as real, as authentic, as vulnerable as you could possibly be, to be fully known and still fully loved in that mess.
So at our campus, our Southeast campus that I work at, since we came back from quarantine and had church, we've had a bunch of people come in from a halfway house. And literally the last 6 weeks, there has been at least one get baptized every single week.
Man.
And the most powerful thing is that one of them gets up there and says they've been sober for 60 days or 30 days. And those of us who are church kids or grew up in the church, we're like, whoa, really? Like just 30 days, you know? But they're living in this authentic, real life of, hey, you know what? I don't have to be perfect to follow Jesus. Clearly, none of us are.
Yeah.
The disciples weren't. And man, there's 3 rows of them now.
Oh man.
Because they keep telling each other about how God is changing their lives. And yes, some of them have been sober for a longer period of time, but they have this excitement about the Lord, and they're okay sharing with what they're walking through. And I believe that authentic relationships are happening at that halfway house.
No doubt.
They go back, they talk to their friends about how their lives are being changed. And they're talking about the crap they've went through.
Yeah, man.
And they're different because of it. And that, to me, is the way we should live. That, to me, is what the church should be. Like, you're exactly right. For far too long, we've hidden ourselves, and the church has been part of that. Said, you know what, you can't share that. That's weird.
Yeah,
or that's uncomfortable. I think that's changing.
Yeah,
I do believe that's changing, but it's going to take those of us who believe in it.
Yeah, not only leadership, but all of us that come. I mean, we got to walk in with different set of eyes, and you know, the whole beauty of this conversation is, man, when you start walking in looking for authenticity and vulnerability as a good quality.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and you're searching out that makes you see things a little differently. That's where you see the beauty in those folks coming in. Because if I'm honest, we all are messed up. Like, can we just be honest about that? Like, all of us, we may not be in a halfway house, but we have areas of our life that could really use the help of those in a halfway house. Like,
absolutely.
We all need counseling. We all need forgiveness. We've got addictions, even if they're not massive ones to opioids or pornography or whatever it may be, but we have habits in our life that is unhealthy habits that's stopping us from who we need to be.
Yeah.
And right now it's hidden in shame and secrecy. It's never brought to light because you feel like you can't. And in order to get there and expose it to the light is the whole reason why God decided to bring us all together in assembly. I mean, it's his idea. He said, you guys need to get together. And if you do this right, then the world will know that I came and I loved you and I came to die for you. Like, if we do that right. And I guess that's my biggest goal, man, is not only does it help you from a personal standpoint of, man, really knowing what it's like to be fully known and fully loved. Not only is it a beautiful, selfless activity to helping someone realize that they can be loved despite themselves, but it's also a way that we can glorify God because we're actually showing that, hey, you know, you forgived us and you know authentically the mess that we are, and you still loved us and forgave us, that we can actually be what God's calling us to be.
Oh yeah, man. That's so good. Well, man, that's actually, I want to wrap on that. I think that is really good. One final thing before we go. Let's maybe just finish the sentence. Authentic relationships do this.
Authentic relationships do to your soul what no other false, fake, broken promise of this world would be able to deliver.
That's great. Bryan, to the 10 years and hopefully, how old are we now?
Into eternity.
At least 50 more, right? At least 50
yeah,
more.
I like that. Optimistic.
Yeah, optimistic. I need to eat better or I ain't going to make it.
It's a lot of Chick-fil-A, dude.
That's a good point. Start eating something healthy. Well, man, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah,
this has been awesome.
Yeah, man. Love it, dude.
Yeah.
Love this. Love what you do.
Thanks, man.
Big fan.
Appreciate it. Well, I hope you found this episode helpful to you. I hope that it was encouraging to you and it helped you see that you can have authentic relationships. I know Bryan and I both believe that you can have this. We believe that it is something you need in your life and it is possible. God doesn't want you to be alone. He wants you to have opportunities to be deep and real and vulnerable with people because that's the way He created you to be. Don't let the world tell you that you can't have this because you can. You just got to look and you got to pray and you got to seek it out. I believe with my whole heart that God's going to lead you to that person who will hear your cries for help, who will laugh with you, who will cry with you, and who will journey with you. All right, so if you found this episode helpful, please hit that subscribe button, share it on your social media account. Be sure to review it on whatever platform you're consuming the podcast. That really helps get the word out about the podcast and shows people, hey, this thing isn't that bad. Go check it out. And also head over to aarontlee.com, scroll down to the bottom, do the newsletter deal. You can also find the show notes up at the podcast tab. And as always, I love you guys. Go live real, be authentic, and let's get trying.